Hey everybody, this is Francesco Abbruzzino with the Uncensored Report, and what we're seeing right now is a young lady that took it upon herself to go out upon the state building and take down the Confederate flag. So we're just going to watch this for a few minutes before we start the show off. You can and can't hear her. Sometimes you got to listen up a little bit. This individual in the yellow hat is assisting her, and you'll see he gets handcuffed at the end too when she finally gets down with the flag.
Whom shall I fear? The Lord is a stronghold in my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? I'm trying to come down first. I'm going to comply. I promise you. I'm coming down. I'm prepared to be arrested. But I can't.
Okay, so that's it. There's a little bit more to that video. It's gotten a ton of hits. I think it's in the six figures. A lot of people are looking at it. It's encouraging many. Look, I'm from Detroit, so to me, I have no skin in the game about this whole Confederate flag. But I think the idea, the concept behind the Confederate flag was not about racial strife. That was the last thing I believe it was about. I believe it was just the South and some of the concerns, and they just wanted to be rebellious and stick with it because that was the flag of their states when they came out there. But let's get this started. This is the Uncensored Report. This is Francesco Abbruzzino. What I do is I cover national issues, and I give my perspective on it, a bit of a libertarian. Sometimes I lean more to the right. I gotta say I'm not huge on Republicans. I'm not huge on Democrats. I don't like Boehner. I don't like Rubio. I don't like Jeb Bush. I definitely do not like Obama. I do not like Hillary. I'm in the middle, and I try to find a middle ground. And someone that's out there looking for the interest of the people. And that's what we need to think of, the interest of the people. And I started out at a local level where I constantly monitor our county and city commissioners and some of the initiatives they put forth. And I started putting it out there in the communications. I started watching great alternative news shows like Alex Jones. And I said, you know what? We need to go another level. And I haven't done this show since I left my radio show. It's been a few months, and I just got so upset, so annoyed over what's happening with from TPP to how the justices, the bribed Supreme Court justices, in my mind, went ahead and said that the subsidy ruling on Obamacare is viable, and then the whole gay marriage stance. And I'm wondering what's happening to our society. But let's go ahead and pop over to this Confederate thing, and I'm going to cover a few issues. But, what happened last week? It was a tragedy. You had this guy walked into his church. He's a white man. He goes into one of the nation's oldest black churches out there, and he kills 9 people. It's despicable what Wolf did. There's nothing acceptable about what he did. But now he's been labeled this right-wing terrorist. They got the whole photos of him out there. He's holding the Confederate flag. He's sitting on a car with the Confederate States of America license plate. They got his manifesto, which is out there. It's called The Last Rhodesian. And it was out there. They discovered it. It's on a site that contains a page title text, which is being called the Racist Manifesto. And while the identity of the site's domain was reportedly masked and they couldn't really find out who it was, they're saying that Roof is the owner of it. And I have no doubt that this guy was possibly a white supremacist. He definitely did not like people of color, just based upon what he said before killing the 9 individuals. Some of the photos, some of the information that's now being leaked out. Definite concerns out there, folks. But government officials, politicians, can't let a serious crisis go to waste, can they? It's just like some of these school shootings. Immediately, the Second Amendment. And let's look at Ruff alone. Not even, I don't know how fast it was, an hour, 2 hours. Obama was out there politicizing this issue. He wasted no time saying that this is all because of the guns. An attack upon the Second Amendment. We got to get out there. We got to do something. We got to take those guns away. And everybody sits back and says, oh, yay, Obama. Praise Obama. Yeah, let's do that. Why? Why do they go out there and take these awful events, these tragic events like this mass shooting, and try to justify implementing new laws or banning some inanimate objects such as the Confederate flag that's been out there for years? You know, we're hearing more and more and more cries for gun control. Let's ban another item, the Confederate flag. What's next? The American flag? People are out there calling for that. Statues? What is going to be next? When do we stop this craziness? And like I said, with this whole Confederate flag, there's a bunch of misconceptions out there about the flag, about the history of the flag, the hypocrisy of hating it, and not the American flag, and what the flag means to different people today. And there's many stories out there. Many stories. Basically what I do, folks, this is a one-man operation. If you've never seen my show, I do everything from the production, marketing, everything. Just like all my sites. It's all a one-man operation. And what I'll do is I'll pull up a bunch of documents. Like right in front of me, I have about 5 news articles. It's a little different than someone like an Alex Jones. Good example. He's got his papers all in front of him. He's got them highlighted. Me, since I'm a one-man operation making $0, I tend to find the easier ways so that it's not going to cost me an arm and a leg. And that is putting the documents up in front of me on the computer. It seems to work a little bit more effective for me, especially since I need this computer in front of me with the cam that you're looking into now. And I'll go there and I'll look at, you'll see me jump in between articles. And that's what we're doing now. Because I want to make sure that everything I say is factual. So we're back out there. We're looking at this whole Confederate flag thing. The frenzy around it. You know, and I don't mean to offend anybody. I don't mean to offend the African Americans out there that see this Confederate flag as racism. But that's not what it was out there for. That's not what it is all about. And then all of a sudden, because this one shooting where a guy's he takes a picture with it, we're going to ban it everywhere. And it's gone as far as online retailers, Amazon, eBay. They have announced that they will no longer sell merchandise that depicts the Confederate flag. There was a report, I believe it was on InfoWars, where an individual had a Snapchat, and they said basically that the government was saying it's illegal, so we're going to stop it, which isn't really it. And it goes beyond that. There's a story, it might have been Prison Planet, where an individual went out to get a cake. He wanted a Confederate flag on it. Walmart would not make this cake. The next day he called up. He said, let's do it with the ISIS saying and flag and everything. And they wouldn't make that for him. Or how about Hitler? If Hitler's your guy, and you like waving Nazi flags, no worries. You can get this stuff on Amazon. But since they're banning the Confederate flag over individuals, African Americans, some whites that are offended, saying it promotes racism, are they going to go ahead and ban the Nazi flag? I think the atrocities committed under Hitler are far worse than what were committed under the South. Walmart and Sears, they banned sales of the Confederate flag too. You know, these social justice warriors, they're out there taking the focus off the real problem. And they're blaming everything. Everything but what the real problem is. And it's not the Confederate flag that's to blame. It's not, folks. I guess that is more comfortable than discussing the harsh realities of tragedies like this whole mass shooting thing that just occurred. That there is this existence of evil within our society. And that this flag is providing basically a distraction. At the same time, I believe they passed, I think it was around the same time they passed TPP. And it was funny, and I refer to InfoWars a lot because I get a lot of info. Listening to him motivates me to get out there and do stuff. But he had his son. His son's like 12 years old. He went out and asked people on the street, what's TPP? Nobody knew what TPP was. Nobody. They're too distracted with this Confederate flag issue. You know, and it's easy to get the masses out there and want to ban something. That mob mentality. Get out there. Let's ban it. You know, you get this sense of solidarity. You're out there. You're doing something. But does this banning stop the behavior that supposedly is associated with them? No. You're still going to have hate groups out there. You're still going to have the Klan. White supremacists, Nazis, Black Panthers. Prohibiting or ending the sale of offensive items that feature the Confederate flag is one thing. But the witch hunt is escalating. Which they always tend to do, don't they? You can stop these small items, but come on. You know, you got some revolutionaries out there that want to change the name of a U.S. military base. And memorials, get rid of the memorials. When will stop? It's made history. I don't know what to say about it, you know. You got many liberals out there. There's some call for the South Carolina to take down this flag. They're like the young lady that climbed up it. They want to ban it. Old Glory is next, probably. I think it was Al Sharpton was out there saying, let's ban the American flag. You know, many people can say the American flag symbolizes wars and oppression. That's why it's burned all over the world. I've traveled around the world. I've seen things like this. You know, these people, they're moving from flag to statues, memorials. What, Civil War reenactments, are those next? It's not going to stop with the Confederate flag, folks. It's going to keep on going. And we got to make sure it doesn't. It's a frenzy, the Confederate flag purge. Why are we allowing it as a society? Why are we allowing them to hijack the Confederate flag over this whole racial issue? Another, you know, it was interesting though, and it's a lot how the left is. There was an article out there, and it basically, I don't know if anybody saw this, but as you know, with the Supreme Court, we had basically, I think it was a 5-4. I can't remember the call on this decision, but that gay marriage is okay. And right that day or the next day, ISIS went over and they threw a few, what they called the gays, off a high-rise building. Oh, wait, you don't want to be gay in the Middle East, folks. Trust me. So ISIS, they posted this video. They're showing the gay men being thrown off in a Syrian city. But you don't hear any of the liberals decrying that issue. You don't hear the liberals saying, let's ban that flag. You don't see much news coverage on it outside the alternative news. And that's the other reason why I started turning to alternative news, because nobody covers these issues like they should. Major media does not cover it. When I reflect back upon what I used to get from before I was into alternative media and reading all this news and following the news and starting my own local news media sites, I used to just watch major media, and I was missing out a lot. I was brainwashed. You know, it's funny, I heard, I think it was Biden. Biden was sitting down, it was on Vice, and it's something I'm going to cover in a second, about the Vice story that went out on Russia that just previewed this weekend. And they were out there, I think it was Sean, and he was talking to Biden, and Biden's like, oh, the propaganda that the news media puts out, RT, and all the different news stations there. And they didn't really reflect on the propaganda that our major media puts out. They said Fox News is sort of out there instigating some stuff, but that's it. They didn't really cover CNN, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, and how they're the lapdogs of the government. And they put out the propaganda that their corporate leaders, their government leaders are essentially telling them to put out. And they stay away from other stuff. And it's not just at the national level. You can see this at the local level. Locally, let's take here, for example. I got a huge local following. I think just under 27,000 or 26,000, something like that, fans in a small city. And the local hometown paper would not put out that the mayor had an affair. And that's not huge news in my mind. I didn't really care about that. All of us knew about his affairs. That's right, I pluralized it. What concerned me was that the mayor went to the police chief that works for him and said, hey, you got to arrest this guy because he's threatening me. Well, here's the thing. I read the whole police report. The guy was threatening him 3 months prior. All he was doing now is just leaving flyers everywhere all over his lawn and in the mayor's neighborhood lawn saying that the mayor cheats on his wife. Well, the mayor didn't like that, so he said, I'm scared for my life. A, you should be scared for your wife. You're out there screwing some other guy's wife. B, you should face the music instead of running to the police chief. And C, it was 2-3 months ago. To me, he was abusing his power. But nobody got that message. Nobody took it on. All right, what we're going to do is I'm going to switch you over to a picture. It gives you advertising information while I set up for the next segment. And I don't want you guys to see me sitting here fuddling around. And I'm going to pull up some documents so that I am factual in the information that I'm putting out there. So we'll be right back momentarily. Okay, the next thing I just wanted to go into briefly is just Obamacare. And I own a medical billing company. That's basically how I pay my bills because I don't do it through my Scoop page. Even though, it's amazing, my Scoop pages has over 330,000 visits this month. And it's really starting to catch on, and not just locally, nationally too. Yet I don't make anything. I started doing some AdSense, and I guess I do make something, but I just started after 5.5 years. I make a few dollars. But my main source of income, the thing that feeds my kids, allows my kids to go to the movies that they're at now, is the medical billing industry. So Obamacare was near and dear to me, and I've seen the effects. I've seen the effects on a personal level. My insurance, and something I didn't realize, I had insurance way before Obamacare went into effect, so there was no changes to it. I didn't see a rate increase. All suddenly, this month, a couple months ago, I saw a $200 increase. So I called the Golden Rule, and I said, hey, what's going on? Why the increase? They said it's basically, A, people are starting to get off that plan, so you got to cover for the people that have left, and B, it's not just your health, it's everyone's health. So forget the fact that I'm healthy. I go to the gym all the time. I'm very healthy. I don't really go to the doctor. You're responsible for everyone as a whole. And so I said, this is ridiculous. It's getting out of control. And so I contacted a friend. I said, hey, what other insurance is out there? I don't qualify for Obamacare. I don't qualify for Medicaid or any of that stuff. So he did some checking. He's like, Frank, you stick with what you want. The next best insurance was another $500. And I couldn't believe this. And basically, I had the basic coverage. Right then it was a $5,000 deductible. I waived it up to $2,000 to get the cost down $200. But the financial impact, to me, the only people that are benefiting from this are the individuals, the low-income individuals. And it's being subsidized by the middle class, the hardworking folks that are out there trying to make things happen. It's almost as though I'm being penalized for going into college, going into the Navy, trying to make something out of my life. I'm being penalized for it. I could have just stayed home, eating bombs, hanging out, and had the government pay for it. Right now, the government's giving health care. You got your Obama phone. And the latest and greatest thing is free internet, which I put on my site a few times. So it's getting ridiculous. So we got this whole Obamacare passage where the Supreme Court came in and said, hey, the subsidies are okay. Essentially, they went out and they just made stuff up. They're out there and they're willing to make stuff up. just to save Obamacare, to save it from utter disaster. And essentially they went in and Roberts rewrote the law on Obamacare. And instead of applying a law of facts and coming up with a fair, unbiased judgment, most American judges out there do whatever they want to do. They search for some law or some case to try to justify the direction they want to go in. And a lot of these guys, with some of the decisions that are coming around, I gotta wonder if they're being bribed. Because it's ridiculous. It's like, how the heck did you just come up with that? What grounds? The Obamacare decision should have been straightforward. But for some reason it wasn't. It revolved around the interpretation of a phrase, and I'm going to look at it here. The phrase stated that healthcare exchanges must be established by the state in order to receive tax credits. Justices could interpret this to mean that the federal government could give tax credits in states where exchanges weren't established by the state. Established by the state. It should mean established by the state, right? But yet they interpreted it the way they wanted to. And it's just, these judges, a lot of these lawyers, they're the most liberal out there. They're being taught that the U.S. Constitution is this living, breathing thing that can be changed and interpreted any way they want to justify their decision. They're the activist judges that are out there. And it's a national crisis that should be tempered. But how? How do you do stuff like that? How do you temper something like that, folks? That's the question. And worse than these Supremes is just the economics of Obamacare. I briefly touched on the economics involving myself. But the economics of Obamacare are far worse. Far worse than whatever the constitutional mistakes have been made or committed by this bribed Supreme Court. And the decisions of Obamacare have damaged job creation, new business formation. It ruins jobs incentives by making it pay more not to work, which thereby intensifies the labor shortage. They're in there saying, don't worry about working. We got you covered. We're going to give you health care. And how about the tax increases? Across the board, this thing that wasn't a tax increase, but now, according to the Supreme Court, is a tax increase. Well, not now. It's been out there for a while. Is inflicting heavy punishment on investment. Medicare tax on salaries, self-employment income, 3.8% tax increase on capital gains. They're all anti-growth and anti-job. But nobody's really talking about this negative economic impact of Obamacare, which is a much larger story than the Supreme Court's jurisprudence. The problem with the 49ers and 29ers out there, the business mandates and penalties imposed by Obamacare when small firms hire a 50th employee or ask for a 30-hour work week are so high that some firms are opting out of holding employment at 49 hours, which I would do too. I'm a business owner. That's what I would do. Everybody's out there. They're all out there complaining about the low labor force participation rate. Do you think this is going to help it at all? Why are they surprised? It's effectively Obamacare. This government is effectively paying people not to work. Give them the phone. Give them health care. Food stamps, what is it? 41 billion, whatever that number is, I forget. We'll give you the food stamps. But Obamacare enrollment's coming up short now. They're getting all the people that can't pay for it, but the others, they're not. The people that are supposed to support it, it's coming up short. So what's going to happen? There's a clause in there. And I heard one senator come out, I think it was actually Rubio, that idiot. He came out and he said, hey, look, this clause in here allows us, the government, to come in and rescue insurance companies, and it should not be in there. No matter what they want, we're gonna go out. We're gonna pay the money. We're gonna take care of them. If they don't make any money, we're gonna bail them out. Then I didn't see it anymore, and it's still in there. So essentially, if they're out there, it's a little secret that the taxpayers. It's written in this Obamacare. Taxpayers have to bail out insurance companies if they run into financial issues. Government is not the answer. Free market competition with free consumer choice is the answer. We set the prices, set the premiums, set the costs. Obamacare mandates reduce freedom and raises cost. It needs to be scrapped. Before we become something like the next Greece, which is bound to happen. It's bound to happen, folks. The SHTF plan, excellent site. And they talked about another thing since we're on Obamacare. And it's how Obamacare, basically, the White House is coming in there and they're publicizing the whole healthcare crisis. They're saying, look, medical professionals, we want you to talk about the effects of global warming with your patients. Hey, they trust their doctors. Let's talk to them about warming, global warming. What kind of political advice will these doctors be giving? I don't know. But they'll go in there. And you got to think, this isn't unlikely, like shit hits the fan says, that the poor health profiles, you got your overweight people, obese smokers, pre-existing condition. They'll go in there and someday they're going to have some kind of penalties added onto these individuals for failing to comply with climate change remedies. It's going to disqualify them from certain inclusions. You could see it. I might be stretching it, but why are we politicizing it? Why are we telling doctors to talk to people about global warming? It makes no sense. It's senseless. Senseless, folks. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, that was a quick one because I actually only had to pull up one page for some facts here, and it's regarding China. But what I wanted to talk about is I watched Vice this weekend, and I really enjoy the show. I enjoy their site. I enjoy going there and reading it. But I found some inaccuracies or some stuff that was concerning to me. And they were talking primarily about Russia and what happened over in the Ukraine. And they're over there saying, okay, the Ukraine had an uprising. But they missed a few of what they may consider minor details. I think they're large details. First of all, basically what happened, if you watch my show, you know this. The Ukraine went up and they had a vote for some agreement which would bond closer ties with Europe. The Ukraine government shot it down. They said, no thanks, but no thanks. Next thing you know, there's an uprising. People are out in the streets. They're protesting. What was missed in there is a leaked voicemail. What happened is somebody intercepted a call from Newland. Newland was actually on the show last night, too, saying how bad and evil Russia is. But what they neglected to put out was what was covered on this phone call. Basically, Newland said, hey, look, we're out there protesting we're out there sponsoring these protesters. I think it was like $5 million. Then she started talking about the puppet government that she wanted in place, which happens to be the bankster, IMF banker, I think he was. And it's all right there. Newland, the assistant ambassador, the United States, saying we gave them $5 million to help with this uprising. We want this government in control, so they'll do what we want. That was all missed in the Vice thing. So then Vice goes through and they show bodies of all the bunch of protesters that were shot. But they didn't show the fact that the protesters also had guns and were shooting at the Ukrainian government at the time. Disconnect there. Then they said, okay, that all happened. And they talked about how Russia came into Crimea. What they neglected to do was talk about the military significance of Crimea to Russia. They forgot to mention that essentially Crimea has been part of Russia for God knows how long. They said that Russia marched their troops in to take over Crimea due to the fact that the government was transitioning and nothing could be done. But that's not true. The treaty that called for, and I think it was a treaty in 97, I can't remember what year exactly, there was a treaty, and it basically said Russia can house X amount, I think something like 25, 30,000 soldiers within the Ukraine boundaries. It was all part of that agreement to protect their interest. They were already there. They might have moved them around more to be more strategic, which we would do. I would hope the United States would do. But it's not like they came marching in like Vice led us to believe with their show yesterday. The rest of it was pretty much spot on. They talked about how, Putin has to play the line and say help but not help. Not being seen is helping. They came on with Biden. God, this guy was an idiot. And Biden was gone there saying that Russian news media is just a bunch of propagandists, and they're out there telling the government line, putting out what the government wants them to put out. But he didn't say anything about the fact that we do that with our own news outlets. But that's one huge concern, and basically they talked about the nuclear Armageddon clock, how it moved closer and to, I think it was 2017, 2019, I forget what it was, but it's moving closer and it's becoming more and more dangerous. You have people out there like powers on the UN saying, hey, we'll nuke you. Putin's saying, hey, don't mess with us, we'll nuke you. Then there's a larger concern, and that's China. And it's the close ties that China's now building with Russia. They are, even though they're enemies, now they're getting closer. They're like, you know what? We need to get closer. And not just military-wise, economically, with Brinks and other functions, with selling the oil. They're doing it all by yen. So they're building this bond because they see the problem that Russia's having with America. Could exist with China. Well, actually, China's experiencing now. Both sides are sitting there thinking, leading us to believe that war's in the future. And this comes from events like in the South China Sea, where China went in, and some people are saying it's a blatant, they went in, took over this island, they're building it up in military infrastructure. How about them coming in and stealing all of our data? We're accusing them of coming in, stealing viable data on all federal employees. Tensions are high. And they're feverishly out there trying to develop that new offensive weapon systems so they can be used against war. That South China Sea move, that's real troublesome. It's angered Obama. And that's because so many people out there claim those islands. It's not just China that's saying, hey, it's our island. Hey, we're going to grab it. But it's being claimed by Malaysia, Vietnam, Taiwan, Brunei, and the Philippines. And we're bound by treaty with the Philippines to come and support them and back them up if anything should happen to China. But we were also bound with the Ukraine under that same type of treaty, so who knows what will happen. China insists that this is sovereign territory. The United States I haven't heard that we disagree with that. We're just concerned that they're militarizing it. In China, there's talk about war may be necessary to defend their interest in the sea. And they have their paper, which is essentially the mouthpiece of the communist government, out there saying that war is inevitable with the United States. And a lot of people look at that and they think, you know what? It just may be. And I mentioned the 14 million federal workers had their information taken. A lot of people view that as an act of war. So it's continuing to build up the tensions over this cyber espionage. And I think someone came out and said, if America could do that, we would have done it. We just don't have the capabilities, which we would. So it's almost like a virtual war out in virtuosity. They're out there, they're conducting massive exercises. One recently worth an invasion on Taiwan. And this is another area, another country that's protected by us. Any action against Taiwan would be considered action against us. I think it was InfoWars. Paul Watson put out something about how they're retrofitting many of their ships for possible conflict. Another troublesome issue. They have the capability to equip their nuclear missiles with MIRV warheads. Bill Gates put out a story about that was interesting. And that new hypersonic glide vehicle that they was out in the paper, I think I shared some information on it. They're building the Navy is a series of ballistic missile submarines that can be right off our shores. When we're out there, we're shrinking our budget for our military. They're out there expanding it just like Russia is. It's getting scary, folks. And a lot of people say, it's a conflict that could happen 15 years down the road. But now many are concerned that it could happen sooner, especially with the ties they have with Russia. China, they've become increasingly wealthy off selling us their goods. And in the process, we've lost thousands, millions of jobs over to the Chinese dollars, trillions of dollars over to them. And once our debt-fueled economy collapses, what's going to happen? China won't need us anymore. They're going to go elsewhere. And I think China views us in this manner. And many people are out there saying China is going to be the next superpower. There was an interesting article put out. Who put it out? I think shit hits the fan. Put out an article regards the collapse of the China market. And many people are speculating, that the China market's going to crash. But they're speculating now with ours, too. Maybe I'll cover that tomorrow's show about how many leading financial analysts out there are predicting by October a major correction, a crash here. And they're suggesting that you, A, have enough to live on for 6 months, and be prepared that it will be one of the worst economic downturns that we've ever seen. All right, I'll be right back as I set up for the next segment. All right, I'm back. Next, I wanted to briefly just to talk about what on alternative media a lot of times we call the sheeple. A lot of people that are asleep to the tyranny that's going on to them. They're glued to the TV, watching Real Housewives of Atlanta, thinking that's reality. They don't want to accept the true reality that's out there. And, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And what the government wants is to keep us focused on and distracted by all the political expedient things that are being said. They want to continue their frog march down the road towards tyranny, outright tyranny, and they want us to be distracted with the Confederate flag issue, with what's going to happen on Real Housewives. The unarmed citizens are still getting shot by militarized police. And they're trained to view us as the enemy. I started a new section because what started this was, I don't know if I'll have time to cover the brutality part, but locally, I was at a meeting. An officer said, "You can't do that or you got to leave." And I said, "Well, that's not right." "Oh, you got to leave." So I contacted City Hall, said, is this allowed?" "Yes." Contacted the fire marshal because the guy said, "Oh, it's a fire issue." Fire marshal said, "No, you could do that." Had it all written down, sent it to the chief. Said, "Look, I think either A, your officer was abusing his power, or B, he knew who I was and he was just being a jerk." They never got back to me. The chief wrote me and said, "Oh, we'll check it out," and he never got back to me. And it's got me thinking. That's what pushed me to start my whole cop watch section. Why are these abuses occurring? And I want to cover it in a second. It's because there's no discipline, no follow through, no action being taken against these officers that are out there running rampant, doing whatever they think they can do when they do. There's an officer, sheriff, my buddy, I won't mention his name. He was arrested. And this guy basically was abusing his power. He's threatening to arrest the guy's wife, threatening to arrest this. And he was just detailing the whole story, which I'm going to blog about once it's all done, over and done. And it was amazing how this deputy sheriff, was just abusing his power. So let's get back to the sheeple. We're out there, our private communications, our data, they're being sucked up by the spy agencies. If you got a Samsung TV, they're copying everything you say. Google just came out and said, basically, they turned on a box to listen to your conversations without having you sign off on the agreement. You had the government come through Congress and said, hey, we're going to stop the NSA and everyone from spying. And they did this placebo, the USA Freedom Act, a lot of freedom it brought. It just brought upon more tyranny. A lot of people feel that it's just gave them more authority to go out and do what they're doing. And what's happening is the taxpayers, our dollars are being squandered on roads to nowhere. Endless wars did not make us safer. Do you feel any safer with what's going on over in Syria? And that's a whole other story about nation building and why we should not be in Syria and what's really happening over there, but it's being told differently by major media, which I'll cover some other time, which I don't think I've covered in the past because, I think I covered before my show ended a while back. So you got these military drills. They're being carried out on U.S. soil. Jade Helm. Why is that happening on American soil? It's all the pretext of training soldiers for urban warfare. Why is that occurring? Freedom is being threatened in every direction. Political, cultural, educational, media, psychological. It's part and parcel of the propaganda that's out there by the government machine. And we have seen with the erection of electronic concentration camps, the TVs, the iPhones, this invisible prison that's surrounding us. We're presented with this illusion that if we act of our own volition, when most of the time we are being watched, prodded, and controlled. We're being watched by the Facebook, the Samsung TV, Google coming in, cameras everywhere. I had some person, I was out blogging, upset about some cameras going up in 3 locations here locally. And I can't stand the same line these people use all the time. If you got nothing to hide, what are you worried about? I've got nothing to hide. Let them record me. And I ask these basic questions. So when you go in the shower, do you leave your door open? Do you pull the shower curtain shut? Yes, I do. Well, why? You got nothing to hide. Do you shut your curtains at night? Yes. Well, why? You got nothing to hide. Let them look in. Is that essentially what you're doing when you're allowing these people to watch you with the cameras everywhere? You can't go anywhere nowadays without the cameras. But they'll still sit there and say, hey, I'm doing nothing wrong. How much worse is it going to get with the merger of the internet into the corporate state? It seems almost like too many situations are hopeless, but are they really hopeless? You know, you don't choose to be born or choose what sex you are or who your parents are going to be. When you're a child, you're told to do this, do X now. There are rules, basically. Endless rules. We see them over and over. And they do this in order to build and develop a compliant citizenry. You got to be forced to live in this mental matrix of words, ideas, ideologies, and all that good stuff. But for there to be any hope of real change, folks, you have to change how you think about yourself, your fellow human beings, freedom, society, and government. This means freeing your mind, realizing the truth. unlearning the myths that are programmed into your head. Get out there, make a change. Come to grips with the reality the present system does not foster freedom. We're not free. We're more freer than other countries, but we are not free. It's almost gotten to the point where voting has become practically worthless. In principle, it's a great privilege. In practice, though, it does nothing. It does nothing in this secret surveillance state. How many times have politicians run for office and then lied about what they're going to do, hoping change to America? We just recently locally had politicians where overwhelmingly, people came forward and said, we do not want this land developed. I only heard one person come out for developing it. And I watched all the council meetings. I read most of the emails. Guess what the city council did? Approved it. They did not listen to the citizenry. And then a week later, they have their city manager and mayor out there. This is just last week, I think it was. Saying just giddy about the fact that they're making so much money off developers that they can go out and hire someone to monitor the bicycle lanes. I put something out there like that and people said, oh, all you do is complain. Amazing. And you gotta, you can't sit there and assume that what they're doing is good for the citizenry. I don't know if developing all this land is good for the citizenry. Actually, I don't think it is at all. We need to get involved. Local politics. Run for mayor. Run for city council. Make effective change. Do it at the local level. What I've chosen to do is take a format, a platform, where many people can hear my voice. Many more people within my community are aware of what's going on because of the delivery system that I'm using. I'm basically a guy behind a computer that's followed by all the major media, followed by all the local police, local sheriffs, the politicians, and they're listening to what we have to say out there. Get away from the electronic concentration camp. There is little hope for any true resistance if you are mindlessly connected to the electronic concentration camp. Get away from the cell phone. Get away from the laptop. Get away from the TV. Be wise. Realize there's power in numbers. And for the love of God, realize what freedom's all about. Who were the first persons to get the unusual idea that being free was not only a value to be cherished, but the most important thing that someone can possess? The answer in a word is the slaves. Freedom arose from the hearts and minds of those people that realized that they were slaves. And that became their primary passion of those who were victims of slavery. And some Americans are starting to realize that they are slaves, and if they don't act soon, they will find themselves imprisoned in electronic concentration camps indefinitely. Sitting in front of the TV, distracted as the government goes out and takes away more and more and more from the people. The sheeple. Hence the sheep of what they call an alternative journalism. Very concerning, folks. Let's see, I did want to cover 2 more issues, but I just don't think I have the time. I wanted to talk about police brutality and facial recognition, so time constraints. I won't be able to. So this was my first show after being back. Something else I do during the shows is cover headlines. Actually, I have some time to try to cover some of the headlines and just give some feedback on them and see what your thoughts are. Why don't we do that real quick? Take a quick glance at the headlines that are out there. Okay, we got the Orthodox Christians must now learn to live as exiles in our own country, and a lot of people are more and more concerned about the attacks upon the Christians, and Shark attack. Nothing new there. Obama's half-brother sells revealing letters from the president. I got to read that. I have not read that yet. The Greek banks, that's something that's on this site right now, and I actually just read the article so I can talk to it. And basically, they came in. I think I posted on my website, and they came in. They're going to essentially, it looks like, close down the banks tomorrow. And in addition to that, once they're open or once you're able to get some money, there's going to be capital controls. And a lot of people are nervous. A lot of people are concerned. The Greek government wants to get out of the grasp of the European Union with that's basically robbed and pillaged their country. But to do it, they're going to have to go through all these heartaches. And that's something else that I think is coming down the road for us, and I'll cover it soon. I've covered it before about if we lose our reserve status, how will America accept austerity? I don't know. We're a bit spoiled, a bit pampered, if you will, folks. And I don't think Americans could handle austerity the way Greece is handling it now. I've lived in South Italy, and I've seen basically what it is to live in it's not a third world country, but in South Italy, sometimes you think you are. Life is tough. Life is hard. And I couldn't see the average American living that way in those standards. So we'll cover that all later. This has been the Uncensored Report. It is on Monday through Friday. Sure, let people know it's on at 11 o'clock. This is my first show in a few months, so hopefully it'll get better. I'm a little rough around the edges right now. And if you got any thoughts or anything, let me know. I do call-ins. I do interviews and stuff, and I'll try to get back into the swing of doing that stuff. It's all about limitation. I'm going to try to do the show Monday through Friday at 11. Hopefully it'll work out. A lot of times because of my schedule and a lot of the stuff I have involved, I cannot do that. Like this Friday, I know I will not because I'll be traveling to a client of mine in the medical industry. So that's it for Francesco Abbruzzino. Everybody have a great night.